Hello Redbots, this is Red Just Play, and I finally fixed my technical issues that have prevented me from showing my face for some time, and now I can start doing as I promised and update you on the latest Need for Speed theories written by Stubby Fresh Tributes with a aid of myself. Currently, he has created backstories to several of the unsung heroes of the franchise. He has written 12 of these, so I'll probably go through 1, 2, or 3 per part of the following of these. So let's just straight on dive into it. Okay, number 1 on the agenda is Kevin Allen Stewart of Motor City Online. The unnamed protagonist, until research determined that he grew up like any muscle car guy and practically owning a Mustang Boss 302 and Mustang Mark I. He spent his time in Motor City being a mechanic and a street racer for traditional hot rods and USDM muscles. He drove 2 ponies instead of a Mopar or a Camaro, managing to win every single event, becoming popular within the city. When JDM, ASDM, and EUDM arrived in the US, the popularity of muscle car dominance is becoming only a tradition for most drivers in the United States. Cars like the superior GTRs are capable of agility and reaching top speeds with less effort, unlike its never seen before American rivals. The Mustang SVT Cobra R is overwhelmed with power, but can't keep up with the Skyline's superiority. At the age of 40, Kevin was able to train 2 young drivers, Jack Rourke and Ryan Cooper. We'll get to them in more detail at a later date. Jack specializes in endurance and a balanced nature in driving, whilst Ryan is capable of being a good mechanic, able to modify the parts to his specification and maybe even test them before going back and dyno tuning to fix it to see if he could do better. So with this, he garnered a bit of a reputation as a race driver tutor, training eventually the likes of at least according to him, Toby Marshall, Jade Jewel Barrett, and Angie from 21st Street. Kevin made the Mustang tradition very firm in Motor City and is still attending races around the US. Possibly in Palmont when he uses a yellow Mustang to lure down the authorities and a blue Camaro, the only 70s car in Rockport, which then made half the Rockport PD. He'd go into confusion when he lost them. Eventually, this legacy he would culminate in Ken Block offering a collaboration with Monster Energy for a very special project, which itself culminates in the making of Razor's 2015 Mustang based on the RTR GT model. Kevin's legacy, he lives on in all the drivers he's trained, antagonists and protagonists. And who in turn would pass his skills through him. In the process, the student would become the master and would teach some other proteges in return for their service. Such is the case of Toru Bull Sato from Need for Speed Most Wanted. Possibly one of the most underrated characters in all of Need for Speed. The reason for that is that his vehicle of choice once dominated the streets of Rockport. Which leads us to his story, the second in this series. Originally, Bull was a member of the samurai crew running in Palmont when the Lucky Sevens were still dominating Coast City. His origin was from a rich Japanese family. He simply from the famous Yakuza Mafia. His black Mercedes McLaren SLR, which I have done a build of in Forza Motorsport 5, I might do a test run of it if you guys so desire, was a modified street racing machine tuned by one of his samurai colleagues. His leader, Vortex, was usually wise and has good leadership skills, but in his arrogance, Bull resides his attitude to be the leader himself. However, any attempt to usurp the title was quickly shut down, as Vortex's skills were twice as superior. Eventually, the Lucky Sevens were able to defeat the samurai and send them to Olympic City. In which they would find a new rivalry with the Eastsiders. Or at least Vortex took a group who had to do that. Everyone who remained in Palmont was left to race against the other crew who's at Carbon Canyon and under Bull's command. Their vehicle of choice was the essential Porsche Carrera GT, which never really had the opportunity to be nominated for this use. But that faithful night, most of Bull's teammates died or were at least injured from falling off the cliff, because unfortunately the Porsches were too heavy and quick for the corners of the mountain that eventually they had to understeered and couldn't keep up with most rival crews. Angered by this, Bull up and left with one of the Porsches, never to hear from his former higher up again. especially not hot after he cooperated his car towards Samantha. During this time, he had made his way to Rockport and was keeping his Porsche in his garage there while he does up his McLaren. He wandered around the docks day and night trying to find a way to exact his vengeance and in an effort of retribution towards the samurais. If it weren't, Razor understood his pain for some reason and offered him a place on his crew. As such, Bull removed the last remnant livery off of the McLaren, and which looked something like this, and then made it simply black with red window tint. One of Bull's many tasks under Razor's command was to dominate the blacklist. To do so, they had to associate with corrupt cops and races alike, and assert their insert their dominance throughout. Now, as I mentioned, it was the driver from Need for Speed Most Wanted. What was confirmed to be going by the name of Thomas Spydowski. When he arrived, he was tasked with sabotaging his M3, which would go back 180 degrees and bite him in the ass. When Spydowski began his climb back up the blacklist, and he just so happened to be his 14th victim. After Spydowski defeated Razor, Mia was able to call in a few favors from her friends at Rockport PD and managed to detain most of the blacklist that Spydowski had defeated. But I say most because Bull managed to escape to Olympic City, where he stumbled upon Razor, sometimes going by the name of Phantom. Eventually, Bull would receive a message from Zephyr to meet him in Seacrest County, where they would eventually race along the highway. And get taken out by an Enforcer class Lamborghini Reventon, driven by who would eventually come to be known as Fate. Bull was heavily injured in this incident. being sent so injured that he had to get sent into hospital, where after 9 months he was visited by Zephyr, except not the one he had met in Seacrest County. See the Zephyr he met in Seacrest County truly answered to the name of Brian. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a reference to like Fast and Furious and but they spent so much time to get Heather that Brian trusted Bull Toru enough to tutor him and find the wisdom he so desired. Right, and he trusted him with this new face donning the handle of Zephyr, and who he also trusted with the reasons he had for his lust for vengeance. Toru took her to the last area where the previous samurais died. While making their way through Olympic City, they discovered that Vortex's car was in the possession of Samantha, the female lead in Need for Speed Underground 1. They recognized that Vortex had given up despite his young age and being the leader of the samurai sect in Olympic City, and Bull needed to find a reason. While following leads to Bull was visited by FBI agents. He assumed this was so that they could arrest him. However, they decided that this was a waste of their time and his talents. So instead, he was offered a place on the FBI's VRT, or Vehicle Response Team, if you will, for an operation referred to as Operation 510. For this, he was given an updated McLaren, specifically the Roadster 772 model, and he was assigned to aid an ultimate enforcer from Seacrest County, which would turn out to be Fate. Unfortunately for Bull, Fate was left injured in action by one of the many racers going under the handle of Zephyr. As such, the mission was, as far as Bull was concerned, deemed a failure, causing him to leave the VRT and begin racing again in Olympic City under Samantha's permission. Eventually, he was called out of retirement to drive the last Porsche Carrera GT tuned by factory racing. This gave him nightmares. Officer Rivera, which you would remember from the special event of Need for Speed No Limit, it's purposefully defeated Bull to cover his ties with Ray Hazer. As this was an undercover operation. All Razor knew from that race was that Toru allegedly died during a car crash. With this information, Toru was able to successfully escape Razor's eye and head back on the run until he escaped to Fortune Valley, where he was joined by Izzy, one of Spydowski's other victims during the run on the blacklist, and Sal Mastella, one of his allies. They were joined by the last of the samurais, which included a girl named Akira. Together, they constructed a custom Acura NSX based off the modern model with GT3 specs, allowing Bull to enter the outlaw rush along with Ryan Cooper, Tyler Morgan, and the former Speed King of Nitro side, Big Nate Denver, in the Outlaw Rush. Although, if you've played the story through the entire campaign for Need for Speed Payback, you'll already know the outcome. Tyler Morgan manages to defeat Lena Navarro in the final race. But I feel like that for a vlog/theory video, this is already carried on long enough. So we'll just settle it there with two backstories he's done and covered. Bull's and Kevin's. If you want to see more of these, I'll send you a list. I'll put down a list of the backstories that I have in the description box below. Can vote on them down in the comments. But until then, if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit that like button, share videos, favorite videos, do all this stuff. All the support is always appreciated. I try to read every comment, and if I'm delayed in doing so, I'm sorry. But until then, that is all from me. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.